At a party with my wife's friends, I tried to kiss my wife while dancing. She replied, "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." Everyone laughed, but they quickly shut up when they heard my answer. Alright, let me paint you a picture of my life before everything went sideways in the most spectacular karma-infused way possible. I'm Logan Pierce, 41 years old, and I build skyscrapers for a living. Yeah, actual skyscrapers. The kind of buildings you see in downtown skylines that make tourists stop and take photos while blocking the entire sidewalk. I've got my professional engineer license, 15 years of experience, and I've literally designed structures that can withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and apparently everything except my wife's social circle. But here's the kicker. According to Tarara's friends, I'm about as exciting as watching paint dry on a Tuesday afternoon in February. Never mind that I'm responsible for making sure hundreds of thousands of people don't plummet to their deaths when they're sipping overpriced lattes on the 47th floor. Nope. That doesn't qualify as fun when you're competing with guys who post shirtless gym selfies and talk about their cryptocurrency portfolios like they're modern-day philosophers. My wife Tara is 36 and works as a marketing executive for some boutique firm that specializes in making rich people feel even better about themselves. She's legitimately gorgeous. I'm not even being biased here. We're talking magazine cover beautiful with this smile that could probably convince a loan shark to forgive your debt. She's confident, sharp, and has this way of walking into a room that makes everyone immediately check their posture. I fell for her hard back in the day, like embarrassingly hard. We met at a charity fundraiser where I was the awkward engineer in the corner nursing a beer. And she was the woman who actually came over and talked to me instead of treating me like furniture. Back then, she thought my whole strong, silent type who builds things vibe was attractive. Now I'm just the guy who doesn't understand why we need to spend $300 on a single dinner so she can Instagram it with 17 different filters and hashtags about living my best life. The irony is that I actually make pretty decent money. Civil engineers who work on major commercial projects aren't exactly scraping by, but apparently money only counts if you spend it loudly enough for other people to notice. Her friends, though, oh man, her friends are something else entirely. Picture this. A collection of women who treat every social gathering like it's an audition for a reality TV show that doesn't exist. We're talking designer handbags that cost more than my first car. Heels so high they're basically stilts and enough perfume collectively to knock out a small elephant. They speak in this weird code where every compliment is actually an insult and every insult is wrapped in so many layers of just kidding that you need a decoder ring to figure out what the hell they actually mean. And the volume. Jesus Christ, the volume. These women don't have conversations. They have competing monologues. Someone will be talking about their Pilates instructor and before they can finish, another one jumps in about their new juice cleanse. And then someone else starts going on about how their husband just surprised them with a trip to Napa. And it's just this constant escalation of who can outbrag everyone else while pretending they're being humble. Oh, it's nothing really. Just a little weekend getaway to wine country in our friend's private jet. Yeah, super relatable, Karen. The empathy level in this group hovers somewhere around absolute zero. I watched one of them, Stephanie, literally yawn while another friend, Rachel, was talking about her mom's cancer diagnosis. Yawned like she was bored by someone else's legitimate tragedy because it wasn't exciting enough content for the group chat. These are the people my wife considers her closest friends, her tribe, as she likes to say. I call them the Procopiranhas in my head because they smile real pretty while they're circling and waiting for someone to show weakness. Me, I'm a simple guy with simple pleasures. Give me a Saturday afternoon with a grill, some quality steaks, a cold beer, and sweatpants that have seen better days, and I'm in heaven. I don't need to document it for social media. I don't need validation from people I barely like. I just want to enjoy the moment without performing it for an audience that's only half paying attention anyway because they're too busy planning their own posts. But love makes you do stupid things, right? Or maybe it's not love at this point. Maybe it's just habit or fear of change or that weird sunk cost fallacy where you've already invested so much time that walking away feels like admitting defeat. So, I keep showing up to these ridiculous parties, these soirees, and get-togethers that are really just excuses for everyone to flex on each other while pretending they're having fun. I stand in corners nursing drinks I don't really want. Nodding politely while someone's husband explains his new sports car to me like I'm supposed to be impressed that he overpaid for a vehicle that's completely impractical for city driving. I smile through conversations about vacation homes and private school admissions and which country club has the best Sunday brunch. I bite my tongue when they make little digs at me. Those jokes that aren't really jokes about how I'm so serious or so practical or my personal favorite, so different from us. Different. That's their polite way of saying I don't belong. And you know what? They're absolutely right. I don't belong in this weird, shallow, Performative world where people measure their worth by Instagram likes and designer labels. I belong in the real world where buildings need to actually stand up and people do actual work and conversations have substance beyond comparing notes on which influencer is problematic this week. But I kept showing up anyway because Tara wanted me there. And I was still operating under the delusion that marriage meant supporting your partner even when it made you want to fake your own death. I played the role of the boring husband, the guy who doesn't quite fit. The one her friends could safely mock because I was supposed to just take it with a smile and be grateful I was included at all. This particular party though, this one was different. This was the one where I finally hit my limit, where something inside me just snapped like a dry twig. Where I decided that maybe, just maybe, I was done being everyone's punching bag. This was the party that would flip my entire life upside down, shake it around, and reassemble it into something I actually recognized. This was the party where I remembered that I'm a guy who literally builds skyscrapers. And if I can handle that kind of pressure, I can sure as hell handle a room full of people who peaked in high school and never got over it. So, buckle up because what happened next is the kind of story that spreads through social circles like wildfire. The kind that people whisper about at other parties. The kind that makes you either a legend or an outcast depending on whose side you're on. Spoiler alert, I became both. And honestly, I've never been happier. So, Melissa, Tara's self-proclaimed best friend and the unofficial queen bee of this ridiculous social hive decided to host what she called a Friday soiree. Let me translate that for you in terms of normal people can understand. It was a Friday night party, but calling it a soiree made it sound fancier and justified the fact that she was going to spend 3 days preparing for it and approximately $4,000 on decorations that would get thrown away the next morning because heaven forbid you just invite people over for drinks and snacks like a regular human being. No. Everything had to be an event, a production, a carefully curated Instagram story that would make everyone else feel inadequate about their own lives. Melissa lives in one of those modern farmhouse-style homes that's about as authentic as a $3 bill. You know, the type shiplap everywhere, those weird metal letters spelling out gather or blessed on the walls, and approximately 700 throw pillows on every piece of furniture. Her husband Trevor is this guy who works in finance and has the dead eyes of someone who stopped caring about life somewhere around his 30th birthday. I actually feel bad for Trevor sometimes. He's not a bad dude, just completely beaten down by years of being married to someone who treats him like an accessory that needs to match her aesthetic. The party invitation came via a group text naturally because apparently we're all teenagers again. Friday soiree at our place. Cocktail attire. Can't wait to see everyone. Wine emoji, champagne emoji, that weird dancing lady emoji that nobody knows how to interpret. I showed the text to my buddy Mike from work and he literally said, "Bro, that sounds like hell. Just tell them you have food poisoning." Solid advice, but Tara would have murdered me in my sleep if I tried to bail. So, Friday rolls around and I'm getting ready trying to figure out what exactly cocktail attire means for a party at someone's house. Does that mean a full suit, a blazer, a tux made of diamonds? I honestly had no idea. And when I asked Tara, she was already in full panic mode about her own outfit, treating her closet like it was a hostage situation. She had clothes thrown everywhere. And I counted at least 6 different dresses laid out on the bed like she was preparing for a fashion show instead of going to Melissa's house where we'd all seen each other a million times before. I made an executive decision and went with dark jeans and a crisp button-up shirt. Clean, put together, but still me. I'm not showing up in a 3-piece suit to eat cheese cubes and pretend to care about someone's opinion on the latest Netflix documentary. That's where I draw the line between being supportive and completely abandoning my dignity. When Tara saw what I was wearing, her face did this thing where it tried to smile, but her eyes were screaming. You know that look, right? Where someone's mouth says, "That's fine." But their entire energy says, "You've disappointed me on a fundamental level." She gave me the once-over like a drill sergeant inspecting a recruit who showed up wearing flip-flops. "Oh," she said, and that one syllable carried more judgment than an entire Supreme Court ruling. "You dressed casual." The way she said casual made it sound like I'd shown up in a bathrobe and Crocs. I looked down at myself. Clean jeans, no holes, no stains, a button-up shirt that I literally ironed, which should count for something because I hate ironing more than I hate rush hour traffic. Nice shoes, not sneakers. I thought I looked pretty decent, honestly. "I'm sorry," I said, matching her fake smile with one of my own. Was I supposed to wear a tux for Melissa's air fryer demonstration because Melissa had mentioned in the group chat that she was going to show everyone her new air fryer and the amazing things she'd been making with it. An air fryer at a cocktail party. The woman has a net worth that could probably fund a small country, and she's excited about a kitchen appliance that costs $60 at Target. A couple of her friends who were already there, Jessica and Amanda, I think. Honestly, they all blurred together, giggled in that awkward way people do when they witness someone getting roasted, but don't want to seem like they're taking sides. One of them, I'm pretty sure it was Jessica, whispered to Amanda, "He's funny." And Amanda whispered back, "He's trying too hard." They weren't exactly quiet about it either. I heard every word, and I'm pretty sure they meant for me to hear it because that's how this group operates. Everything is passive-aggressive. Everything is a test. And everyone is constantly being evaluated on some invisible social scorecard that only they understand. So yeah, the night was off to an absolutely beautiful start. I could already tell this was going to be one of those evenings where I'd spend 4 hours wondering why I didn't fake that food poisoning Mike suggested. We walked in and the house was exactly as ridiculous as I'd expected. Melissa had gone full-on Pinterest mom with the decorations. There were string lights everywhere. Fancy cocktail napkins with little gold designs on them. A whole table dedicated to a charcuterie experience, which is just a fancy way of saying meat and cheese that we arranged to look pretty. And these specialty cocktails with names like Melissa's Mule and the Soiree Sipper. I grabbed a beer from a bucket because I'm not drinking something called a Soiree Sipper. Even if you paid me. Trevor was already at the bar area, 2 glasses deep into something that looked stronger than his will to live. When he saw me, his eyes lit up like I was a rescue helicopter and he'd been stranded on a desert island. "Logan, thank God, another guy." He grabbed my shoulder like we were war buddies reuniting after battle. "You want to see my new grill? I just got it installed on the deck." Now, Trevor's new grill was probably the most genuine conversation I was going to get all night. "So," I said, "sure." We headed outside and for about 15 glorious minutes, we talked about BTUs and temperature control and the best way to get a proper sear on a ribeye. This is what normal dude friendship looks like. No performances, no judgment, just 2 guys appreciating quality outdoor cooking equipment. But of course, it couldn't last. Tara came outside with that look on her face that meant I was being antisocial, which apparently translates to not standing in a circle of her friends while they all talk over each other about things nobody actually cares about. "Logan, honey, come inside. Everyone wants to catch up with you." Nobody wanted to catch up with me. Nobody ever wanted to catch up with me at these things. They wanted me inside so I could be the boring husband standing next to the pretty wife, completing the picture of her successful life. Inside, the party was in full swing. Music was playing, some top 40 playlist that Melissa probably titled Classy Vibes or something equally ridiculous. The women were all clustered together, wine glasses in hand, laughing at volumes that suggested they'd already been drinking for a while. The conversations were exactly what you'd expect. Someone's renovation project, someone else's upcoming vacation, a debate about whether Soul Cycle was better than Equinox, and an extended discussion about a mutual friend who wasn't there and therefore was fair game for gossip. I stationed myself near the snack table because at least there I had something to do with my hands and a legitimate reason not to participate in conversations. I was working my way through what was actually a pretty solid buffalo chicken dip when Stephanie cornered me. Stephanie is the one who I'm pretty sure is having an affair with her personal trainer, but nobody says anything about it because that would require actual honesty in this group. "Logan, you're so quiet. What do you think about the election?" She asked this like she was setting a trap, which she probably was. Any answer I gave would somehow be wrong. If I engaged seriously, I was being too intense. If I deflected with humor, I wasn't taking things seriously enough. If I said I didn't follow politics closely, I was uninformed. It was a no-win situation. "I think I'm just here for the buffalo chicken dip," I said, holding up my plate like evidence. "This is actually really good. Did Melissa make this?" Stephanie laughed that fake laugh. "That means you're dodging my question and I'm annoyed, but I'm going to pretend I think you're charming." Then she turned to Tara. "He's so funny, Tara. You're so lucky." The words said one thing, but her tone said something else entirely. It said, "I would never tolerate a husband like this." Tarara's smile got tighter, which I didn't even think was possible at this point. I could feel the tension radiating off her like heat from asphalt in August. I was already in trouble, and the night had barely started. That's when I realized that this particular Friday soiree was going to be different from all the others. I could feel it in the air, like the weird pressure change before a thunderstorm. Something was coming and whether I was ready for it or not, it was going to change everything. About 2 hours into this circus of a party, after I'd eaten enough buffalo chicken dip to require a medical intervention and listened to at least 3 different conversations about kitchen backsplash tiles, the music suddenly shifted. Up until this point, it had been that generic party playlist background noise that nobody actually listens to, just fills the awkward silence between forced conversations. But then Melissa, who had apparently appointed herself DJ for the evening, Because of course she had put on some early 2000s pop song that made all the women in the room lose their collective minds. I'm talking full-on squealing. The kind of sound that probably had dogs in a 3-block radius losing it. "Oh my God, I haven't heard this in forever," someone shrieked. "This was our song in college," another one yelled. Suddenly, it was like I'd been transported back to some sorority house reunion I never asked to attend. These women, all in their mid-30s, were acting like they'd just discovered the fountain of youth in the form of a song that was probably playing at every mediocre wedding and bar mitzvah back in 2003. Tara's face completely lit up, which was the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her all night that wasn't related to judging my outfit or being annoyed at my existence. "I love this song," she announced to nobody in particular, which is classic Tara. Every statement is a declaration. Every opinion is a press release. She immediately grabbed Jessica's hand and they started doing that thing women do where they dance in a circle facing each other, pointing at each other during certain lyrics like they're in a music video. The living room, which Melissa had carefully arranged with furniture that probably cost more than my truck, suddenly transformed into a makeshift dance floor. Couches were pushed aside by husbands who looked both exhausted and resigned to their fate. Trevor caught my eye and mouthed, "Help me," while his wife dragged him into the dancing circle. Poor bastard looked like he was being led to his execution. Now, I'm not a big dancer. Never have been. I've got 2 moves. The awkward shuffle and the even more awkward shuffle with occasional arm movement. But watching Tara actually smile, actually look happy for the first time in what felt like months, something in me decided to be optimistic. Maybe this could be a moment, you know? One of those spontaneous party moments that couples talk about years later. Remember when we danced at Melissa's party? Maybe I could be the husband who didn't just stand against the wall like a security guard at a museum. So, I did something either really brave or really stupid, depending on how you look at it. I walked over to where Tara was dancing with her friends, and I gently took her hand. "Come on," I said, trying to sound playful, trying to channel some version of myself that existed back when we first started dating, and everything wasn't so complicated and exhausting. "Dance with me." She looked at me like I just asked her to explain quantum physics while juggling flaming chainsaws. Her friends went quiet for a second. That kind of silence that happens when something unexpected occurs and nobody knows quite how to react. Then Tara rolled her eyes in that exaggerated way that was clearly meant to be seen by everyone watching and said, "Fine." Like I just asked her to do the dishes instead of inviting her to dance at a party specifically designed for this kind of thing. But she humored me, and for those first few seconds, it actually felt good. I pulled her close, my hand on her waist, and we swayed to the music like actual married people who actually liked each other. She even leaned in a little bit, and for a moment, just a brief, fleeting moment, I remembered why I fell in love with her in the first place. She smelled like that perfume she always wore, the expensive one I couldn't pronounce. Her hair was soft against my cheek. The music was actually pretty decent once you got past the nostalgia factor. I got caught up in it, in the feeling of being close to my wife without some wall of tension between us. Maybe it was the beer I'd been nursing. Maybe it was the relief of finally doing something at this party that didn't feel like torture. Or maybe it was just nostalgia for a time when things between us were simple. Whatever it was, I made a decision that seemed romantic in my head, but turned out to be the social equivalent of stepping on a landmine. I leaned in to kiss her. Not some dramatic passionate kiss like we're in a movie. Just a simple sweet kiss between a husband and wife dancing at a party. Normal couple stuff, right? The kind of thing that should be perfectly acceptable and maybe even a little cute. That's when Tara decided to absolutely detonate my entire existence. She pulled back like I'd just tried to bite her, her face scrunching up in this expression of pure disgust that I'd never seen before. Not even that time I forgot to take out the trash for 2 weeks. And our kitchen smelled like a biological weapon. And then in a voice loud enough for absolutely everyone to hear in a room that had suddenly gone quiet because apparently everyone had stopped their own conversations to watch us. She said, "Ugh, I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." Time did this weird thing where it simultaneously stopped completely and sped up all at once. I stood there, hands still on her waist, frozen like someone had hit pause on my entire life. My brain needed a solid 3 seconds to process what had just come out of her mouth to confirm that yes, my wife had just compared kissing me unfavorably to kissing a dog in front of all her friends at a party where I was already the social outcast. The room exploded, not with gasps of horror or sympathetic silence, but with laughter. Full volume, can't catch your breath, slapping their knees laughter. Melissa nearly dropped her wine glass. Jessica doubled over like she'd just heard the funniest joke of her entire life. Amanda was literally wiping tears from her eyes. Someone in the back yelled, "Oh my God." Between giggles. Even Trevor, my supposed ally in this nightmare, had his hand over his mouth, trying not to laugh, though at least he had the decency to look a little bit sorry for me. Glasses clinked as people toasted to what had just happened, like Tara had just delivered the punchline of the century. The music was still playing, but nobody was dancing anymore. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what I would do, how I would react. This was better than whatever garbage reality TV show they were all watching at home. This was live entertainment, and I was the main attraction, the fool, the punchline, the guy who'd just been publicly humiliated by his own wife. And me? I just stood there smiling. Not a real smile, obviously, but that smile you do when you're in survival mode and your brain is working overtime to figure out how to respond without making everything worse. I nodded slowly like I was carefully considering her statement, turning it over in my mind, examining it from all angles like I examine structural blueprints at work. Because here's the thing about being married for a while. You learn that sometimes silence is your best weapon. You learn that the pause, the moment before you respond, can say more than any immediate comeback ever could. You learn that while everyone else is laughing and celebrating your humiliation, you can be in your head doing calculations, measuring angles, planning your next move. I'd spent years at these parties being the joke, being the guy who didn't fit in, taking the subtle digs and the not-so-subtle mockery with a smile and a shrug. I played the role of the boring husband, the one who wasn't cool enough or fun enough or interesting enough for this crowd. I'd let Tarara's friends treat me like I was lucky to be included in their presence, like I should be grateful that they tolerated my existence at their precious gatherings. But something about this moment, about being humiliated in front of everyone, about watching my wife get celebration laughs for comparing me to a dog, about seeing Trevor's pitying face and Melissa's delighted smile, and all those women who'd been judging me all night, now getting confirmation that yes, Logan Pierce was exactly the loser they'd always suspected he was. Something about all of that flipped a switch in my brain. You know that moment in cartoons when a character gets hit on the head and little birds circle around them? That's what this felt like. Except instead of birds, it was clarity. Crystal clear HD surround sound clarity about my entire life in this relationship and these people and what I was willing to tolerate. The music kept playing. The laughter started to die down as people waited for me to either slink away in shame or laugh it off like it was all a good joke. Tara was looking at me with this expression that was half challenging, half satisfied, like she'd just won something. And that's when I decided, okay, if we're playing this game, if we're doing public humiliation at parties, if we're comparing our spouse to household pets for entertainment value, then let's really play. Let's see how funny everyone thinks. This is when the guy who's been taking it quietly for years finally decides to swing back. I kept smiling, kept nodding, and prepared to say something that would change. Absolutely everything. Because when you've been building skyscrapers for 15 years, you learn a thing or two about structural integrity. You learn how much weight something can hold before it collapses. You learn exactly where to apply pressure to bring the whole thing down. And brother, I was about to become a demolition expert. The laughter was starting to fade into that awkward aftermath phase where people realize they've been laughing at someone's expense and now they're not sure if they should keep going or pretend it never happened. A few people were clearing their throats, taking strategic sips of their drinks, sneaking glances at me to see if I was going to cry or storm out or do something that would give them even more entertainment for the evening. Melissa was already pulling out her phone, probably preparing to document whatever happened next for the group chat that I wasn't part of, but definitely knew existed. I took my time. That's the thing about revenge or justice or whatever you want to call what was about to happen. Timing is everything. I could have responded immediately. Let my anger drive the words. But that would have made me look defensive, bitter, like the loser husband who couldn't take a joke. No, this required precision. This required me to look completely calm, completely in control, like I was about to share an interesting observation about the weather rather than drop a verbal nuclear bomb on my wife's entire social existence. I finally looked directly at Tara, maintaining that same pleasant smile I'd been wearing, the one that probably made me look slightly unhinged if anyone was paying close enough attention. The room had gone quiet enough that you could hear ice cubes shifting in glasses, someone's phone buzzing on the kitchen counter, the low hum of Melissa's fancy refrigerator that probably cost more than a semester of college tuition. That's fair, I said, my voice steady and conversational like we were discussing which restaurant to try for dinner. I paused, letting those two words hang in the air just long enough for people to wonder if that was all I was going to say, if I was really going to let her win that easily. Then I continued, at least the dog wags his tail when he sees me. The effect was immediate and spectacular. It was like I'd thrown a flashbang grenade into the middle of Melissa's carefully curated living room. The room went from awkward silence to dead silence. The kind of silence that happens right before something catastrophic, like the moment before a building starts to collapse when you can hear the structural supports beginning to fail. It was beautiful. Honestly, Years of engineering training had taught me to appreciate the precise moment when forces shift and equilibrium is destroyed. Someone, I think it was Amanda, made this little gasping sound like she'd just witnessed a car accident. Jessica's wine glass was frozen halfway to her mouth, suspended in shock. Melissa's jaw literally dropped open, and for once in her life, she didn't have a response ready. She looked like her brain had blue-screened, like Windows, trying to process an error it had never encountered before. But the best part, the absolute cherry on top of this moment, was Trevor. Trevor, who'd been suffering silently through years of these parties, who'd been the faithful husband standing in corners while his wife held court, who'd been just as much of a prop in this social circus as I had been. Trevor lost it. He tried to hide it. He really did. He brought his fist to his mouth and turned away, his shoulders shaking, making this sound that was half cough, half laugh. Then he muttered just loud enough for the people near him to hear, "Well, damn." That broke the seal. A few nervous laughs scattered through the room, but they were different from before. These weren't the celebration laughs at my expense. These were uncomfortable laughs, the kind people make when they're not sure if they're allowed to find something funny or if they should be offended on someone's behalf. Tara's face went through several colors in rapid succession. First pale, then red, then this weird purple shade that I'd only seen once before when she got into an argument with a customer service representative who wouldn't accept her expired coupon. Her jaw was so tight, I could see the muscles working in her cheeks. Her eyes were doing that thing where they got really wide and really focused, like a predator locking onto prey. Except in this case, I was the prey who just grown claws. But I wasn't done. See, I'd spent years watching these people operate, learning their patterns, understanding their dynamics. I knew that one good comeback might get a laugh, but it could be dismissed as a lucky shot, a fluke, the boring husband getting in one decent line by accident. If I wanted this to stick, if I wanted them to realize that I wasn't someone to be casually dismissed and mocked anymore, I needed to drive the point home with absolute clarity. So, while everyone was still processing the first hit, while Tara was still formulating her response, while the social power structure of this ridiculous friend group was still wobbling on its foundation, I took another casual sip of my beer. Just a small sip, nice and easy, like I had all the time in the world, like I was savoring the moment, which I absolutely was. Then I added with the same conversational tone you'd use to comment on the weather or compliment someone's shoes. And come to think of it, the dog doesn't fake headaches either. Boom. Tactical nuke deployed. Direct hit on target. No survivors. The room absolutely erupted, but this time it was chaos instead of coordinated laughter. People were gasping, choking on their drinks. And someone in the back, I'm pretty sure it was Kevin, Stephanie's husband, who I'd spoken to maybe twice in my entire life, yelled, "Oh shit," loud enough that it echoed off Melissa's vaulted ceilings. Trevor completely gave up on maintaining composure. He was bent over, hands on his knees, laughing so hard that no sound was coming out. His face was red, tears were streaming down his cheeks, and Melissa was shooting him death glares that he was completely ignoring because he'd finally witnessed something at one of these parties that made them worth attending. Jessica dropped her wine glass. Literally dropped it. It hit Melissa's expensive rug with a dull thud and splashed red wine everywhere. But nobody even noticed because they were all too focused on what had just happened. Some people were laughing, real genuine laughter, not the performative kind from earlier. Others looked absolutely scandalized like I just revealed government secrets or admitted to a crime. Stephanie's mouth was hanging open so wide you could have parked a truck in there. Amanda was frantically looking between me and Tara like she was watching a tennis match. Kevin was high-fiving the guy next to him. Some dude whose name I never learned, but who was apparently Team Logan in this moment. The best reactions, though, were from the other husbands in the room. These guys, these poor bastards who'd been standing around all night pretending to care about conversations they had no interest in, who'd been the silent furniture in their wives' social performances. They were looking at me like I'd just stormed the beaches of Normandy, like I was some kind of hero, a rebel alliance fighter who just landed a critical hit on the Death Star. One of them, Mark, who was married to one of Tarara's work friends, mouthed "my man" at me and gave me a subtle nod that carried years of shared suffering and newfound respect. Another one raised his beer bottle in my direction in a silent toast. But Tara, oh man, Tara looked like she was about to achieve nuclear fusion. Her face had gone beyond purple into some color that didn't exist in nature. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Her perfectly manicured nails probably leaving marks in her palms. Her chest was heaving like she'd just run a marathon, except the only exercise she was getting was trying to restrain herself from committing murder in front of witnesses. Melissa finally found her voice, probably feeling like she needed to regain control of her party before it completely devolved into chaos. "Okay, everyone, let's just she started using her best corporate mediator voice. But I wasn't about to let her diffuse this situation with some diplomatic nonsense. I raised my beer bottle slightly. Not quite a toast, but not quite nothing either, and looked around the room at all these people who'd been judging me, mocking me, treating me like I was lucky to breathe the same air as them. My smile was genuine now, not forced, because for the first time in years at one of these gatherings, I was actually enjoying myself. Cheers to honesty, folks, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the room despite not raising it at all. Seems like it's been in short supply around here. The laughter that followed wasn't at anyone's expense except Tara's. And maybe that should have made me feel guilty, but honestly, after years of being the punching bag, after countless parties where I was the joke, after tonight where my own wife publicly humiliated me for entertainment, I felt nothing but satisfaction. I took another sip of my beer and caught Trevor's eye. He was still grinning like an idiot and he gave me a thumbs up that his wife definitely saw and would definitely punish him for later. Worth it, his expression said. Totally worth it. Tara finally found her voice, though it came out strangled and tight. We're leaving, she announced to nobody in particular, or maybe to everyone at once. Now, sounds good to me. I replied cheerfully because at this point, why not commit fully to the bit? I've got an early morning anyway. Buildings don't design themselves. As we headed toward the door, I could hear the room exploding behind us with frantic whispered conversations. This would be the story they talked about for months, maybe years. The night boring Logan Pierce finally snapped and took down Tara in front of everyone. The night the social hierarchy got flipped upside down. The night someone finally said what all those other husbands were thinking, but never had the balls to say. I grabbed my jacket from the coat rack, nodded politely to Melissa, who looked like she was still trying to process what had just happened to her perfect party, and followed my furious wife out into the night. The cool air hit my face, and I took a deep breath. That was the night everything changed. That was the moment I remembered that I didn't have to be anyone's punching bag. That respect is something you take, not something you beg for. And honestly, I'd never felt more alive. The walk from Melissa's front door to our car in the driveway was approximately 30 feet, but it felt like one of those death marches you see in movies where the condemned prisoner is being led to their execution. Except in this case, I wasn't sure who was the prisoner and who was the executioner. Tara was walking about 3 paces ahead of me, her heels clicking against the concrete with sharp, angry precision that probably would have punctured the driveway if it were possible. Each step sounded like a tiny declaration of war. I hit the unlock button on the key fob, and the car chirped cheerfully, completely unaware of the domestic nuclear winter it was about to witness. Tara yanked open the passenger door with enough force that I'm surprised she didn't rip it off the hinges, threw herself into the seat, and slammed the door so hard that the whole vehicle shook. Real mature stuff. Very composed and dignified. Exactly what you'd expect from a marketing executive who prides herself on her professional image. I took my time getting in because honestly, I was still riding the high of what had just happened. My hands weren't even shaking. My heart rate was normal. I felt calm, centered, like I just finished a really good workout or solved a particularly complicated structural problem at work. This must be what skydivers feel like after they jump. That mixture of adrenaline and accomplishment and the knowledge that you just did something that scared the hell out of you, but you survived anyway. I settled into the driver's seat, adjusted my mirrors, even though they didn't need adjusting, and started the engine. The radio came on automatically, some classic rock station playing a song about freedom that felt almost too on the nose to be a coincidence. I turned it down to a low hum, buckled my seat belt with deliberate slowness, and checked my blind spots like I was taking my driver's test again. The whole time, Tara sat there vibrating with rage, staring straight ahead through the windshield like if she looked at me, she might actually explode. I backed out of the driveway smoothly, gave a friendly wave to Melissa, who was watching from her front window like this was the most dramatic thing to happen in her neighborhood since someone's teenager egged a mailbox, and headed home. The street was quiet, lined with those fancy gas lamps that HOAs love because they make everything look like a movie set. Nice houses, perfect lawns, the American dream wrapped up in mortgage payments, and the crushing weight of keeping up appearances. The silence in the car was so thick you could have cut it with a knife and served it for dinner. It wasn't just quiet. It was aggressively silent, weaponized silence. The kind of silence that has its own gravitational pull. I could hear everything. The hum of the tires on asphalt, the quiet whoosh of the air conditioning, my own breathing, the occasional creak of the leather seats when one of us shifted position. Even the car itself seemed uncomfortable, like it was caught in the middle of a domestic dispute. Food. It wanted no part of. You could hear the tires judging me. I swear to God. Even the wheels were like, dude, you really went there, huh? But they were respectful about it. Supportive even. The left front tire seemed particularly impressed. Good tire, that one. Always been reliable. I found myself humming along to the radio just quietly under my breath. Some Tom Petty song about not backing down, which again felt like the universe was having a laugh at our expense. Or maybe just at Tara's expense now, which was a refreshing change of pace. I was in a genuinely good mood, possibly the best mood I'd been in at any point during our marriage in the last 2 years. There's something liberating about finally standing up for yourself after years of taking it on the chin. It's like that feeling when you finally scratch an itch that's been bothering you for hours. Except the itch was my dignity, and the scratching was publicly destroying my wife's social standing. Tara's reflection in the passenger window was doing this thing where it looked even angrier than her actual face, if that was possible. Her jaw was clenched so tight she was probably going to need dental work. Her arms were crossed over her chest in that universal body language for "I'm extremely pissed off and you should be very worried." Except I wasn't worried at all, which probably made her even more angry. We hit a red light about halfway home, and the silence somehow got even more intense. I could feel her wanting to say something, the words building up inside her like pressure in a volcano right before it erupts. I glanced over at her, curious to see if she was going to blow, but she just stared straight ahead, her lips pressed together in a thin line, her nostrils flaring slightly with each breath. The light turned green and we continued our journey through suburban purgatory. Past the organic grocery store where everything costs 3 times what it should. Past the yoga studio where Tara went twice a week to find her center, which apparently didn't include any center that involved being a decent human to her husband. Past the Starbucks where her friends probably gathered to gossip about people who weren't there to defend themselves. About 3 blocks from our house, she finally broke. I'd been wondering when it would happen, curious about what form it would take, whether she'd go for volume or venom or some combination of the two. "You embarrassed me." Her voice came out like a hiss, low and venomous. Each word carefully enunciated like she was teaching English to someone who'd never heard the language before. I didn't respond immediately. I checked my mirrors, used my turn signal because unlike some people, I still had basic courtesy even in tense situations, and made the turn onto our street. Our house was 4th on the left, a nice 2-story with a yard that I actually maintained myself because paying a lawn service seemed excessive when I had 2 functioning arms and a mower. "Oh," I finally said, my tone pleasant and conversational, like she just told me about her day at work. "I thought you started that game." I could see her head whip toward me in my peripheral vision, but I kept my eyes on the road because safety first, kids. We were pulling into our driveway now, the motion sensor light clicking on and illuminating the front of our house in harsh white light that made everything look like a crime scene photo. "You made me look bad in front of my friends," she continued, her voice rising now, the controls starting to slip. "Good, let it slip." I'd been controlled and measured for years. She could deal with losing it for once. I put the car in park, turned off the engine, and sat there for a moment, my hand still on the steering wheel. The engine ticked as it cooled down. The silence rushed back in, filling all the spaces the engine noise had occupied. Then I turned to look at her directly for the first time since we'd gotten in the car. Really looked at her, at this woman I'd married, at this person who just compared kissing me to kissing a dog in front of a room full of people. At this stranger who used to be someone I loved. "Tara," I said calmly, "your friends laughed harder when you insulted me than when Trevor announced his vasectomy at the 4th of July barbecue last year. Remember that? When everyone got real quiet and uncomfortable. That was awkward laughter. Tonight, when you compare me to a dog, they were genuinely entertained. They loved it. So, please explain to me how I'm the one who made you look bad when you literally started a public roast session with your own husband as the target." Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like a fish gasping for air. She didn't have a response to that because there wasn't one. Facts were facts, and the fact was that she decided to humiliate me first, probably expecting me to just take it like I always did, to laugh it off and let her have her moment at my expense. I just evened the score. I continued, unbuckling my seat belt. "Actually, if we're keeping track, I'd say you still came out ahead. You got your laugh. Everyone agreed you were hilarious. You won. I just made sure the victory wasn't quite as one-sided as you'd planned." I got out of the car, closed the door with normal, non-aggressive force because I'm not a child, and headed toward the house. I could hear her getting out behind me, her heels clicking against the driveway, but I didn't wait. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and was immediately greeted by Max, our golden retriever, who was doing his usual excited dance that involved his entire body wagging, not just his tail. "Hey, buddy," I said, crouching down to give him proper attention, scratching behind his ears the way he liked. "At least somebody's happy to see me, right?" Max licked my face enthusiastically, his tail going about 90 miles per hour. Point proven. Tara stormed past us and headed straight upstairs without a word. I heard the bedroom door slam hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. Max looked up at me with those big brown dog eyes, concerned, wondering why the energy in the house was so weird. "Don't worry about it, Max," I told him, standing up and heading to the kitchen to get him a treat. "Just some human nonsense. You wouldn't understand. Actually, you'd probably understand it better than most people." I gave him his treat, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and settled onto the couch in the living room. The house was quiet again, but this was a different kind of quiet. This wasn't the oppressive silence of the car ride. This was peaceful. This was the sound of not apologizing for standing up for myself. I turned on the TV, found a late-night baseball game, and stretched out. Max jumped up and settled next to me, his head on my lap, content and loyal and uncomplicated. Above me, I could hear Tara moving around in the bedroom, probably rage texting her friends, probably already crafting her version of events where she was the victim and I was the villain. And you know what? I didn't care. Not even a little bit. I took a sip of my beer, watched some guy hit a double, and smiled. That night, I slept like a man who'd finally stopped apologizing for existing. The couch was surprisingly comfortable. Max kept my feet warm. And upstairs in the bedroom we'd shared for years. My wife could stew in her own anger without me there to absorb it. Best sleep I'd had in years. I woke up on the couch the next morning to Max licking my face and the smell of nothing. No coffee brewing, no breakfast being made, no sounds of Tara getting ready for her morning routine. Just silence and a dog who needed to pee. I checked my phone. 8:47 a.m. on a Saturday. Normally, Tara would have been up since 7 o'clock doing yoga or meal prepping or whatever productive thing she posted about on Instagram to prove she was living her best life. I let Max out into the backyard, started the coffee maker myself like a fully functional adult, and noticed that the bedroom door upstairs was still closed. Either she was dead up there or she was doing that thing where she stays in bed all day when she's mad. Scrolling through her phone and building her case against me like a prosecutor preparing for trial. My phone buzz. Text from Trevor. Dude, you're a legend. Melissa barely slept. The group chat is insane. I grinned and typed back, what group chat? The wives group chat. She left her phone unlocked. I got screenshots. Want them? Did I want them? Is the Pope Catholic? Does a bear in the woods? I replied with about 6 yes emojis and waited. Trevor was a real one. Most guys in that friend group were so whipped they'd probably report me to their wives for even asking. But Trevor had clearly hit his limit, too. And watching me go nuclear on Tara had apparently inspired some rebellion in him. My phone started lighting up with screenshots and oh my god, it was better than I could have imagined. The group chat name was Nail Polish Wine Queen's Nail Polish, which already told you everything you needed to know about these women. The messages had started coming in at 10:47 p.m. last night, approximately 15 minutes after we'd left the party. Melissa started it. Okay, can we talk about what just happened? Jessica, I'm still in shock. Logan actually said that out loud. Amanda, the dog comment. I literally can't. I spilled wine everywhere. Stephanie, he's been holding that in for years, apparently. Then Tara entered the chat at 11:02 p.m. I can't believe he embarrassed me like that in front of everyone. I'm mortified. And here's where it got interesting because instead of everyone immediately jumping to her defense like she clearly expected, there was a solid 3-minute gap with no responses. You could practically feel the group trying to figure out how to navigate this situation. Do they support their friend? Do they acknowledge that she kind of started it? Do they pretend it wasn't actually that funny even though they all laughed? Melissa finally broke the silence. I mean, you did say the dog thing first, babe. He was just responding. Tara, I was joking. Everyone knows that. He took it seriously and made it into this big thing. Jessica, was it a joke though? Because it didn't really sound like a joke. It sounded kind of mean, actually. Oh, Jessica was going rogue. I loved it. Tara, whose side are you on? Jessica, I'm not on anyone's side. I'm just saying if you publicly roast your husband, you can't be surprised when he roasts you back. That's just math. Amanda, he did get you pretty good with the headache comment. Trevor was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. Stephanie, okay, but he went too far making those kinds of jokes about your wife in public. That's disrespectful. Some woman named Claire who I'd never met. What did he say exactly? I heard there were 2 comments and then someone, I think it was Amanda, typed out both of my comebacks word for word and I could see new reactions popping up on the messages. Laugh reacts, lots of them. Even in the group chat, people were finding it funny. Tara, this isn't funny. You made me look bad in front of everyone, Like I'm some terrible wife. Melissa, the headache thing was kind of accurate, though. Remember last month when you told us about Tara? Melissa, I'm just saying if you're going to use intimate details as comedy material, he can too. The chat went quiet for a bit after that, and then Stephanie tried to rally. Look, bottom line, Logan was out of line. Tara was just being playful and he took it to a dark place. She deserves an apology. Jessica, does she though, Stephanie? Yes. Obviously, you don't disrespect your partner like that, Jessica. But she literally compared kissing him to kissing a dog. In front of 20 people. How is that not disrespect? This Jessica was quickly becoming my favorite person in that entire group. I'd barely spoken to her at parties beyond basic pleasantries, but apparently she had a functioning brain and a sense of fairness. Tara, it was a joke. God, why is everyone suddenly defending Logan? He's been boring and antisocial at every single party for years. Amanda, maybe he's been quiet because every time he opens his mouth, one of us makes fun of him. Holy Amanda, too. What was happening? Was this an actual rebellion brewing in the Wine Queens chat? Stephanie, you guys are being ridiculous. Logan is probably insecure and that's why he lashed out. Tara, you should suggest couples therapy. Tara, I'm not going to therapy because my husband can't take a joke. Jessica, again, was it a joke? Because jokes are supposed to be funny for everyone involved. Logan didn't look like he was laughing. Claire, my husband would divorce me if I said that to him in public. Just saying. Melissa. Okay, maybe we should all just calm down. It was a weird night. Everyone had a lot to drink. Let's just move past it. But they didn't move past it. The messages kept coming. I scrolled through screenshot after screenshot, watching this friend group essentially split down the middle over what happened. Some were Team Tara, insisting I was cruel and out of line. Others were pointing out that she started it and I just finished it. A few were staying neutral, trying to play Switzerland, probably terrified of getting on anyone's bad side. The best message came from someone named Dana at 1:34 a.m. Honestly, I think Logan is hot now. The confidence, the timing, that man woke up and chose violence, and I'm here for it. 3 laugh reacts on that one and Tara replied, are you serious right now, Dana? Dana? What? I'm just saying quiet guys who finally snap are always the interesting ones. You've been taking him for granted and now you're surprised he bit back, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I literally laughed so hard I snorted coffee out of my nose. Max looked at me concerned, probably wondering if I was having some kind of medical emergency. Dana, whoever she was, had just become my second favorite person from that group after Jessica. The screenshots kept coming. By 2 a.m., the conversation had devolved into a full debate about gender dynamics, respect, and marriage, and whether public humiliation was ever justified. Melissa tried to shut it down multiple times, probably realizing her party had caused a massive rift in the friend group, but nobody was listening. Trevor sent one final text. There's more, but my phone is dying. Dude, you broke their group. Half of them think you're a hero. Melissa is talking about uninviting people from her birthday thing next month because she doesn't want drama. It's chaos. Beautiful chaos. I typed back, tell Melissa I'll skip her birthday party. Wouldn't want to cause drama. Trevor, no man, you're probably the only reason half the husbands will show up now. You're like our representative, our champion, our brave heart. That's dramatic. You literally told your wife she fakes headaches in front of everyone. You're basically William Wallace. I laughed again, saved all the screenshots to a folder on my phone labeled evidence, and poured myself another cup of coffee. The bedroom door upstairs was still closed. Max had come back inside and was looking at me expectantly, probably wondering when breakfast was happening. Your mom is having a rough morning, buddy. I told him, getting his food bowl. Turns out publicly mocking your husband has consequences. Who knew? My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. The message said, this is Jessica from last night. Got your number from Trevor. Just wanted to say you weren't wrong. Tara's been mean to you at every party I've been to. And everyone just laughs it off. Someone needed to say something. Good for you. I stared at that message for a solid minute. An actual member of Tarara's friend group reaching out to say I was justified. This was uncharted territory. This was like finding out one of the Death Star engineers secretly supported the rebellion. I typed back, thanks. That means a lot actually. Jessica, also Dana wasn't wrong. The confidence thing kind of hot. If you end up single, I have a sister. Followed by a laughing emoji that could have meant she was joking, but also maybe not. Okay, this day was taking interesting turns. I heard movement upstairs, footsteps, the bedroom door opening. Tara appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, hair messy, eyes red, either from crying or from staring at her phone all night or both. She looked down at me on the couch, Max eating his breakfast beside me, my coffee in hand, looking completely comfortable and at peace. "We need to talk," she said, her voice. I took a sip of coffee. "Sure. What's up?" "Don't what's up me, Logan. You know exactly what's up. You humiliated me twice and now my friends are," she trailed off, probably realizing she was about to admit that her friends weren't unanimously on her side or what? I asked innocently, having interesting discussions about respect and boundaries and relationships. Her eyes narrowed. "You need to apologize. You need to make this right." I sat down my coffee and looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd spent years making me feel small, who'd weaponized her friends against me, who thought she could publicly mock me without consequences. "Oh, I did make things right," I said calmly. "I made myself right. You can handle the rest however you want." Her face went through several emotions: shock, anger, disbelief. She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand. "I'm going to take Max for a walk. You can use that time to decide if you want to have an actual conversation about our marriage or if you want to keep pretending you're the victim here. Your choice." I stood up, grabbed Max's leash, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Tara make this frustrated sound that was half scream, half sob, but I didn't turn around. The fresh air hit my face, and Max pulled excitedly toward his favorite walking route. My phone buzzed with more messages, probably more group chat updates from Trevor, but I ignored them for now. For the first time in years, I felt like I was the one in control of my life instead of just reacting to everyone else's expectations, and it felt damn good. The walk with Max lasted about an hour, mostly because I was in no rush to get back to whatever fresh hell Tara was cooking up in our house. By the time I returned, she'd showered, done her makeup, and was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and about 6 pages of notes spread out like she was preparing for a board presentation. This woman treated our marriage crisis like a marketing campaign that needed a rebrand. "I've been thinking," she announced as I unclipped Max's leash. Not good morning or can we talk or even I'm sorry for being awful, just straight into I've been thinking mode, which usually meant she'd already decided what was going to happen and was about to present it as a mutual decision. "That's dangerous," I muttered, filling Max's water bowl. She ignored that. "This situation has gotten out of hand. The girls are talking, people are taking sides, and it's causing unnecessary drama. Notice how it was unnecessary drama and not I was wrong or I shouldn't have humiliated you first." Classic Tara. The problem wasn't what she did. It was that people had opinions about it. "Okay," I said, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl and biting into it. I was determined to stay as casual as possible, mostly because it clearly irritated her. "So, I think we need to do a public apology dinner," she continued, consulting her notes like she was reading from a script. "We invite everyone back. We both apologize for taking things too far. We show them we're united and that this was just a silly misunderstanding. We move forward as a couple and everyone can stop with the group chat drama." I stopped mid-chew and looked at her. "We both apologize." "Yes, both of us. You apologize for the things you said. I apologize for my comment and we present a united front. It'll show maturity and growth." She said this like she was pitching a marketing strategy to a client complete with hand gestures for emphasis. "Tara," I said slowly. "You compared kissing me to kissing a dog in front of 20 people." I responded with factual observations. "We're not equivalent here." Her jaw tightened. "Logan, if you want to fix this, you need to meet me halfway. Halfway would be you apologizing and me accepting it. What you're describing is me apologizing for defending myself while you give some half-ass sorry if you were offended non-apology. That's not halfway. That's you trying to save face." She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Fine. You know what? Don't apologize. But I'm still doing the dinner. I'm still fixing this because unlike you, I actually care about my relationships and my reputation." "Your reputation," I repeated, "right? Because that's what's important here. Not the actual relationship, not how you treat your husband, but how things look to other people." "You're being impossible," she snapped. "I'm being honest. There's a difference, but you've been playing pretend for so long, I don't think you can tell anymore." She grabbed her phone and started typing furiously. "I'm texting Melissa. We're doing this dinner Friday night. You can either show up and be supportive or you can prove to everyone that you're exactly as difficult as they're starting to think you are." "Oh, I'll be there," I said, smiling. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She looked suspicious, probably because I'd agreed too easily, but she was too focused on her damage control mission to question it. The next 4 days were a flurry of terror, planning this dinner party like it was a state dinner for foreign dignitaries. She hired a catering company, bought new decorations for our dining room, created a whole menu with wine pairings, and sent out formal invitations through some app that probably cost money for no reason. Meanwhile, I went about my week normally: work, gym, walking Max, watching baseball. I did, however, make one special shopping trip to a pet store where I found exactly what I was looking for. The woman working there, probably mid-50s, with kind eyes and a name tag that said, "Ruth, help me pick out the perfect item." "This is either going to be really funny or really bad," Ruth said as she rang me up. "Probably both," I admitted. Friday evening arrived and our house looked like something out of a home design magazine. Tara had gone full perfectionist mode. Everything arranged just so, lighting carefully adjusted. Even our wedding photos that normally sat on a shelf had been strategically repositioned for maximum "we're so in love" effect. She bought a new dress for the occasion, spent 2 hours on her hair and makeup, and was vibrating with nervous energy. "Remember," she told me as I was getting ready upstairs, "we're showing unity tonight. We're a team. No more drama. Got it?" I said, buttoning up a crisp white shirt. "Total team players. Unity. Very unified." She narrowed her eyes. "Why are you being agreeable? Can a guy support his wife's dinner party?" I asked innocently. People started arriving around 7 o'clock. The usual suspects: Melissa and Trevor, Jessica and her husband Brian, Amanda and her boyfriend Kyle, Stephanie and her husband Marcus, and a few others, including Dana, who I now recognized from the group chat screenshots, and who gave me a very knowing smile when she walked in that made Tara's eye twitch. Everyone was being aggressively polite. That weird over-the-top courtesy people use when they're in an awkward situation and don't know how to act. Lots of the house looks beautiful and something smells amazing, and carefully avoiding any mention of what happened last week. It was like watching people tiptoe through a minefield while pretending the minefield didn't exist. We all sat down for dinner and Tara immediately went into host mode, serving food, making sure everyone had drinks, chattering about neutral topics like the weather and some Netflix show everyone was watching. I played along, nodding, smiling, being the picture of a supportive husband. Trevor kept shooting me glances like he was waiting for something to happen. He knew that dude could sense chaos coming like animals since earthquakes. About halfway through the main course, Tara stood up and tapped her wine glass with a fork. "Here we go. The performance. I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she began, her voice taking on that practiced public speaking tone. "Last week was, well, it was a rough night for Logan and me. We both said things in the heat of the moment that we regret, but we've talked about it, and we want you all to know that we're stronger than one bad night. We're committed to our marriage and to each other." She looked at me expectantly. This was my cue to stand up and give my matching apology to complete her carefully scripted redemption arc. I did stand up. I even smiled. But instead of launching into an apology, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped gift box. Tara's eyes lit up for a second. Maybe she thought I'd bought her jewelry as a grand gesture. The rest of the table leaned in, curious. "I actually got Tara a gift," I announced to the room. "Something that really captures how she feels about me." I handed her the elegantly wrapped box. She took it hesitantly, probably trying to figure out if this was a trap. "Smart woman, that one. Sometimes open it," I encouraged, still smiling. She carefully unwrapped it, lifting the lid of the small box, and pulled out the contents. It was a dog chew toy, bright red, squeaky, shaped like a bone, with a tag that read, "For when you miss my lips." The room went absolutely silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then it erupted. Trevor lost it immediately, laughing so hard he had to put down his fork before he choked. Jessica was trying to hide her smile behind her napkin, but failing miserably. Brian was shaking with silent laughter, his face turning red. Even Marcus, who was usually Stephanie's loyal soldier, cracked up. Dana was straight up cackling, not even trying to hide it. Tarara stood there frozen holding this dog toy. Her face cycling through every shade of red and purple in the spectrum. Her carefully planned dinner. Her orchestrated unity moment. Her whole damage control strategy demolished in one move. "Logan," Melissa said, trying to sound diplomatic, but clearly fighting her own laughter. "That's what I said innocently." She said she'd rather kiss the dog. I figured she might want something to practice on. "I'm thoughtful like that." Stephanie tried to rally. "This is incredibly immature, Logan. Tara organized this beautiful dinner to fix things. And I'm giving my wife a gift that acknowledges her stated preferences." I interrupted. "Isn't that what good husbands do? Listen to their wives." Max, who'd been hanging out in the living room, heard the squeaky toy and came bounding into the dining room, tail wagging. He immediately fixated on the toy in Tarara's hand doing that excited dog bounce. "See," I said, "Max approves. He's very supportive of Tarara's choices." Dana completely lost it at that point, laughing so hard she had tears streaming down her face. "I can't," she gasped. "I literally cannot." Tara finally found her voice. "Get out." It came out strangled, barely above a whisper. "What's that?" I asked, cupping my ear. "Get out," she screamed, throwing the chew toy at me. It bounced off my chest with a squeak. Max immediately went for it, thinking we were playing a game, which made several people laugh even harder. I caught the toy before Max could grab it and set it gently on the table in front of Tara's place setting. "I'll just leave this here for you, in case you need it later." Then I turned to address the room. "Thanks for coming, everyone. Sorry to disrupt the Unity dinner, but I've got an early morning. Buildings to design. You know how it is. Some of us have to work on Monday." I gave a little wave. "Enjoy your evening. The catering company did an excellent job with the food, by the way. Really top notch." I grabbed my jacket, whistled for Max, who was still eyeing the chew toy, and headed for the door. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. Tarara screaming at me, Melissa trying to calm her down. Multiple conversations happening at once. Trevor still laughing like a maniac. As I walked out, I heard Dana say very clearly, "Best dinner party I've ever been to. No contest." I loaded Max into my truck and sat there for a minute. Engine running, watching through the window as our house full of people dealt with the aftermath of my exit. My phone started buzzing immediately, probably Trevor sending play-by-play updates. I pulled out of the driveway and headed toward my buddy Mike's place. He told me I could crash there if things went south. And judging by the 17 missed calls already showing on my phone, things had gone extremely south. But as I drove through the quiet streets, Max panting happily in the passenger seat, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Tara had wanted a public apology dinner to save face. Instead, she got a public demonstration that I was done playing her games. Sometimes you don't need to burn bridges. You just need to add a few extra explosives to ones already on fire and enjoy the show. I crashed at Mike's place that night, which was basically like staying in a Bachelor Padime capsule from 2015. Empty pizza boxes, a couch that had seen better days, and a TV that was perpetually tuned to ESPN. Mike handed me a beer, asked 0 questions about why I showed up with a dog and no wife, and just said, "Guest room's yours as long as you need it, bro." That's real friendship right there. No judgment, no lectures, just beer and a place to sleep. My phone was blowing up all night. Calls from Tara, texts from Tara, voicemails from Tara. I ignored all of them. Around midnight, Trevor sent me a message. "Dude, she's losing her mind. Melissa had to give her a Xanax. Half the people left right after you did. Jessica and Dana stayed for like an hour just to watch the meltdown. This is legendary." I texted back. "Tell me she kept the chew toy, Trevor. It's still on the table. She won't touch it. Won't let anyone else touch it. Just sitting there like a monument to your savagery. I'm dead. You killed me. I'm texting from the afterlife." I fell asleep smiling, which probably says something about the state of my marriage, but honestly, I was past caring about analyzing it. Max curled up at the foot of the bed, snoring peacefully, living his best dog life, completely unaware. He was now a central character in a suburban marriage implosion. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls. 47. Tara had called me every 15 minutes from 6 a.m. until I finally woke up at 9:30. The voicemails ranged from angry to crying to threatening to bargaining. It was like watching the 5 stages of grief speedrun through my phone's notification screen. I made coffee in Mike's kitchen using a mug that said "World's Okayest Employee." And finally listened to one of the voicemails. "Big mistake, Logan. You need to come home right now." Tara's voice screeched through the speaker. "You've humiliated me twice now." "Twice? In front of all my friends. Do you understand what you've done? My reputation is ruined. Melissa is getting calls from people asking if we're getting divorced. Stephanie unfollowed me on Instagram. Stephanie, do you have any idea how serious that is?" I almost laughed into my coffee. Stephanie unfollowing her on Instagram was apparently DEFCON 1 crisis. Not the fact that our marriage was circling the drain. Not that we clearly had 0 respect for each other, but the Instagram follow. That was the real tragedy. Another voicemail. "You think you're so funny, don't you? You think you're so smart with your little jokes and your little gifts. You're not funny, Logan. You're cruel. You're vindictive. And you're making me look like the bad guy when all I did was make one little comment. One little comment. That's how she was reframing it. Now, the public humiliation was just one little comment, but my responses were character assassination. The mental gymnastics were Olympic level. Mike walked into the kitchen, saw my face, and immediately understood. She's still calling 47 times since 6 a.m. Jesus. He poured his own coffee. What are you going to do? Honestly, I have no idea, but I know I'm not going to apologize. I'm done apologizing for existing, for not being fun enough, for not fitting into her perfect Instagram life. I'm just done. Mike nodded. About time, man. You've been miserable for like 2 years. We've all seen it. You just smile and take it and pretend everything's fine, but we know your boys know. That hit harder than I expected. I thought I was hiding it pretty well. The slow erosion of my dignity, the constant low-level misery of being in a marriage where you're treated like an accessory instead of a partner. But apparently, it was obvious to everyone except me. Or maybe I knew and just didn't want to admit it. I decided to text Tara instead of calling. I'll come by to get some stuff this afternoon. We need to talk. Her response was immediate. You need to come home now and fix this. Me? There's nothing to fix, Tara. This has been broken for a long time. Tara, don't you dare. Don't you dare act like I'm the problem. You're the one who can't take a joke. You're the one who embarrassed me twice. Me? You started both times. I just finished them. There's a difference. Tara, I'm your wife. You're supposed to support me, not humiliate me in front of my friends. Me? Marriage is a two-way street. You don't get to publicly mock me and then cry victim when I respond. That's not how this works. She didn't respond to that. I finished my coffee, took Max for a walk around Mike's neighborhood, and spent a good hour just thinking, really thinking, maybe for the first time in months about what I actually wanted from my life. Did I want to spend the next 30 years being the boring husband who wasn't good enough for his wife's standards? Did I want to keep showing up to parties where I was the punchline? Did I want to spend my life with someone who thought Instagram unfollows were more important than actual respect? The answer was so obvious, it was almost funny that I'd been avoiding it. Around 2 p.m., I drove back to the house. Tara's car was in the driveway, and I could see her through the window, pacing back and forth in the living room like a caged animal. I took a deep breath, left Max in the truck with the windows cracked, and walked inside. She was on me the second I opened the door. Where have you been? Do you know how worried I was? You just left. You took the dog and left in the middle of a dinner party. I spent 4 days planning. Tara, I started, but she was on a roll. You made me look like an idiot again. Everyone is talking about us. Everyone is taking sides. Jessica texted me this morning saying maybe we need space. Jessica, my friend for 10 years. She's saying we need space because of your behavior. My behavior, I said, my voice calm but firm. Tara, you compared kissing me to kissing a dog in public for laughs. What exactly did you expect me to do? Just smile and take it. It was a joke. No, it wasn't. You meant it. You've been treating me like I'm beneath you for years. Like I'm lucky you even stay with me. Like I should be grateful for the privilege of being your boring husband. And you know what? I'm done. She stopped pacing. What do you mean done? I mean I'm done. Done apologizing for not being exciting enough. Done being your punching bag at parties. Done pretending this marriage is something it's not. Her face went pale. You're not serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You're going to throw away our marriage because of a few jokes. Because your feelings got hurt. No, I said, feeling incredibly calm despite the magnitude of what I was saying. I'm ending a marriage that's been dead for a long time because I finally woke up and realized I deserve better than someone who treats me like an embarrassment. I don't treat you, she started. But I cut her off. Yes, you do. You have been for years. Every party, every social gathering, every time we're around your friends, I'm the joke. I'm the guy who isn't cool enough, fun enough, interesting enough, and I've been playing along because I loved you, or because I thought I was supposed to, or because I was too stupid to realize that love shouldn't feel like slowly drowning. Tears started streaming down her face, but they felt manipulative rather than genuine. So, that's it. You're just giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself for once. There's a difference. You can't be with someone who doesn't take you seriously, she said, echoing something she'd probably say later to her friends, already crafting her version of events. Correction, I replied. I can't be with someone who doesn't take me seriously. You mean someone who won't let you make them the joke without consequences? She stood there, mascara running, perfectly styled hair now messy from running her hands through it, looking at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd only ever seen the version of me I pretended to be. The agreeable husband, the quiet guy in the corner, the one who'd take whatever she dished out. "I'll be back tomorrow to get my stuff," I said. "You can have the house, the furniture, whatever. I just want my tools, my clothes, and Max." "You're taking the dog, Tara. You literally said you'd rather kiss him than me. I think he'll be happier with someone who actually wants him around." She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. What could she say? I'd used her own words as evidence, and they were damning. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I did love you." Past tense. I loved who I thought you were, or maybe who you used to be before. Everything became a performance. But this version of you, the one who treats her husband like a prop in her social media life, I don't even like her, let alone love her. I walked out, got in my truck where Max was waiting, and drove away from the house we'd bought together, the life we'd built together, the future we'd planned together. And you know what? I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt light, like someone had taken a 50 pounds weight off my shoulders that I'd been carrying so long, I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. My phone buzzed. Text from Trevor. "Melissa just got a call from Tara. She's losing it. Says you're leaving her. Is it true?" Me? "Yeah, it's true." Trevor, good for you, man. Seriously, you deserve better. That's when I realized something important. Even the people in Tarara's own circle knew. They knew she treated me badly. They knew the marriage was toxic. They just didn't say anything because that's not how that social group operates. You don't call out bad behavior. You laugh along and pretend everything's fine. But I was done pretending. Done smiling through the pain. Done being the guy who took it quietly. I was Logan Pierce, civil engineer, dog owner, and as of today, a man who finally remembered what self-respect felt like. And it felt damn good. A week later, Tara officially moved out. Well, technically, I moved out since she wanted the house, but semantics. She packed her designer clothes, her ridiculous throw pillow collection, and about 90% of our wedding photos, which honestly saved me the trouble of throwing them away myself. The divorce papers were filed, and suddenly I was a single man for the first time in 6 years. And honestly, peace had never sounded so quiet. My new apartment wasn't much. A decent 2-bedroom in a complex that allowed dogs and didn't ask too many questions. But it was mine. No judgment, no performance, no walking on eggshells wondering if something I said would become ammunition at the next party. Just me, Max, and a furniture setup that consisted of exactly what I needed and nothing I didn't. Her friends predictably went into overdrive on social media. Instagram became a battlefield of passive-aggressive posts. Melissa shared some quote about knowing your worth and walking away from toxicity, which was rich coming from someone who'd watched Tara treat me like garbage for years without saying a word. Stephanie posted about strong women who don't need men who can't handle their confidence, completely ignoring the fact that confidence and cruelty aren't the same thing. But here's where it got interesting. I decided to join the game just once one post. I kept it simple, classy, and absolutely devastating. I posted a photo of Max sleeping peacefully on my new couch with a caption that read, "Even strong women need a leash sometimes, especially the ones who bark first." My phone exploded. The post got more likes in 2 hours than Tarara's carefully curated content had gotten in the last 6 months combined. Comments poured in from people I hadn't talked to in years, coworkers, college friends, even a few acquaintances from Tarara's circle who'd apparently been waiting for permission to publicly acknowledge that. Yeah, she kind of had it coming. Trevor commented, "Legendary. Absolutely legendary crown." Dana wrote, "Best glow up of the year." Also still meant what I said. "Call me if you're ready to meet actually nice people." Even Jessica chimed in. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness. Glad you reminded everyone there's a difference." The best part, Tara's friends couldn't say anything without basically admitting they knew she'd been terrible to me. They couldn't defend her without looking like they endorsed treating your spouse like a punchline. So, they just stayed quiet. Well, except for Stephanie, who tried to call me out for continuing the drama, but her comment got ratioed so hard by other people pointing out Tara started everything that she deleted it within an hour. Meanwhile, my life actually improved. Work was going great. My firm had just landed a massive contract for a new downtown development. And my boss specifically mentioned my renewed focus and energy. Funny how much more productive you are when you're not spending all your mental energy managing someone else's emotional terrorism. I bought a new truck. Nothing fancy, but something I'd wanted for years that Tara had always vetoed because it wasn't sophisticated enough. I started going to the gym regularly again. Not because I was trying to prove anything, but because I finally had time and energy for myself. I reconnected with friends I'd slowly drifted away from during the marriage. Guys who'd invite me to do things that Tara had considered boring or immature. About 3 weeks after the split, I ran into Melissa at a grocery store. She saw me and I watched her internally debate whether to acknowledge me or pretend she hadn't noticed. She chose acknowledgement, probably because avoiding me would have been too obvious. "Logan," she said, her smile tight and uncomfortable. "How are you?" "Never better, actually," I replied honestly. "You?" She clearly hadn't expected that response. "Good." "Yeah, good then," because she couldn't help herself. "Tara's been having a hard time with everything." "I'm sure she has," I said, my tone neutral. "Consequences tend to be hard." Melissa's expression flickered between offense and respect. "You know, I never thought you had it in you. The comebacks, the confidence. You were always so quiet." I smiled. "I wasn't quiet, Melissa. I was just waiting for a good reason to speak up. Turns out self-respect is a pretty good reason." I left her standing there in the produce section, probably already texting the group chat about our encounter, and felt absolutely zero regret. That chapter was closed, and the next one, it was looking pretty damn good. 6 months later, I'm genuinely thriving. My firm landed that huge downtown contract I mentioned, which came with a promotion and a salary bump that made the divorce lawyer fees feel like pocket change. I bought myself that new truck I'd been eyeing, took a solo trip to Colorado, and started actually enjoying my life instead of just surviving it. And Jamie, met her at the dog park where I used to walk Max during my marriage. She's a dog trainer, funny as hell, and refreshingly honest. No games, no performances, just a woman who says what she means and means what she says. We've been dating for 3 months now, and it's shockingly easy. Turns out relationships don't have to feel like navigating a minefield. When she asked about my ex, I kept it simple. Let's just say she barked up the wrong tree. Jamie laughed so hard she snorted, which somehow made her even more attractive. I still see Tara's friend group around town occasionally. They avoid eye contact like I'm Medusa. Probably terrified I'll roast them too. I just smile, tip my hat, and go about my day. "Relax, ladies," I said to them once at a coffee shop. "I only bite when provoked. Life's too short to waste on people who treat you like you're lucky they tolerate you." I learned that lesson the hard way, but damn, was it worth it? Max agrees. He's never been happier.